Welcome back to Spotin's tutorial series. My name is Anton and I'm from the Spotin's Product Enablement team. In this video, we will be doing an overview of the Spotin's Elastigroup dashboard for a load-balanced web application workload. So at the top of the main Elastigroup view, we have high-level group data. We see the number of running instances and the total compute hours. Next, we have the potential costs calculated by taking into account the potential on-demand prices of the instances run by the group, and the actual costs of running on Spot. The difference between the two leads us to the saving percentage and the total amount saved. This data can be viewed for the current month, the last 7 days, or the last 30 days. Below, we see the different dashboard tabs, starting with the Overview tab. This tab shows us general information like group name or ID, and highlights important settings like selected instance types, AZs, and more. We can click the I button to see more information about the AMI or the security groups. We can also immediately see which load balancer is connected to the group and what is the configured health check type. Below, we have the instance count graph, which shows us the group's activity over time, and the distribution graph, which visualizes the distribution of group instances across the different markets. Next up is the Load Balancers tab, which contains data pertaining to the load balancers configured in the group. Here we find the list of balancers, and for each one the number of healthy instances, requests, latency in milliseconds, HTTP 500 and 400 errors. Below we have the data visualized over time with dedicated graphs, which we can filter for 6 hours, 1 or 7 days. In addition, we see the CPU utilization graph of our instances, taken from AWS CloudWatch, and scaling metrics graph, which we will cover in a separate video. Next is the Instances tab. Here we find a table view of the instances in the Elastigroup. For each instance, we see its ID, type, AZ, its lifecycle, status, public and private IPs, creation date, and health status. In addition, if there's a shutdown script enabled, we can see the status of the Spot agent. This table also lets us take actions on those instances, individually or in bulk. We perform actions by selecting one or more instances, and then choosing one from the Actions menu. We can detach instances, or we can lock and unlock individual instances for scaling purposes. The next tab is the Costs tab. Here you can see the accumulated Elastigroup spend graph, which will show the group's total costs for this month against your budget if you've configured it. If you haven't, you can click the bar above the graph to configure your budget and notification thresholds, as shown in our budget tutorial. Below that, you see 3 additional graphs that break down costs into different components. The daily spend breakdown shows general daily spend per lifecycle, while the costs by pricing option shows that breakdown for the total group spend so far on a pie chart. Finally, the daily cluster costs break costs down into their compute, network, and storage components. Next, the Deployments tab will list your past and any ongoing deployments. You can expand each row for more information, or click the View More to get taken to a dedicated deployment page. Here you can see an overview of each deployment, a breakdown of new versus old instances, batch by batch, and look at the deployment event log. In addition, you can start a new deployment from the button at the top. Going back to the Elastigroup view, the next tab is the Spot Markets tab. The purpose of this tab is to give you a look at the performance of the different spot markets selected for your cluster. This in turn can help you with decision making when it comes to which instance types and AZs you want to utilize. The distribution graph shows the cluster's distribution across the different markets over time. The interruption rates graph displays the rate of Spot interruptions for each market across the entire Spotin's platform. The Spot instances lifetime graph shows how long instances in each market last on average before being interrupted across the entire Spotin's platform. The final graph, Managed Instance Types, shows you in real time what all the numbers so far are based on, the breakdown of the actual resources managed by Spotins for the entire region. Each column represents an AZ, and if you mouse over it, you see individual instance types and how many of those Spotins manages at the moment. The final tab is the Log tab, which contains the Elastigroup log. Here you can filter by time and resource ID, and look at the various events occurring at the group. Any changes to the group capacity, instance launches and terminations, replacements, errors, or configuration changes will appear here. Now that we've covered the different tabs in the dashboard, let's take a look at some of the actions we can perform at the Elastigroup level. Clicking on the Actions button on the top right expands the action menu. Edit Configuration takes us to the Configuration wizard where we can update the group configuration. Manage Capacity allows us to quickly modify the group's target, minimum, and maximum capacity. Deploy will initiate a group role. We can configure the batch percentage, health check grace period, and health check type. If we have a load balancer configured, then the health check type will be load balancer by default, in which case it is not configurable. Add notification lets you subscribe to notifications for group events via SNS or HTTP protocols. The notifications are customizable, so for a full list of events and formatting options, you can refer to the Spotinst API documentation. Next, under View Configuration, we can take a look at the group configuration in JSON format. Set Health Check lets us configure customized health checks via the Spotinst Health Check service, for which details and guidelines can also be found in the documentation portal. Next, the Suspend Processes option lets us pause individual automatic processes in the Elastigroup, such as scaling or auto-healing activity. And finally, we can delete the group if needed. This sums up our overview of the Elastigroup dashboard for a load-balanced web application use case. In our next tutorial, we will discuss the configuration of scaling policies, which can be added to our cluster to enable auto-scaling capabilities, so stay tuned and see you in the next video.